You know, it's very transparent here what Kamala Harris's campaign is doing. They are going after you, the NFL fan. They are going after the dude sitting on his couch on a Sunday yesterday wanting to soak up the NFL, first Sunday of the season, and you are getting flooded with Kamala Harris ads. You know, we don't usually get a lot of the presidential ads being in Kansas and Missouri. We'll get a handful. But yesterday, I noticed more than I've noticed in a long time. I sat there and I was kind of flipping around, and I don't know if it was my YouTube TV. I don't know if, I was getting these ads OTT, as they say, and not over broadcast. I don't know. But I must have seen at least 3 or 4 Kamala Harris ads as I was watching games yesterday. Did you see any, Mark, or once again, was it just what I was getting fed through YouTube TV?
I saw a few of them, and I saw some for Sharice Davids as well.
Ah, yes. Okay, I saw those too. And those did not surprise me, obviously, but as I was sitting there and I was seeing Kamala Harris ads, I thought to myself, I see what this is about. Kamala Harris's team knows that she struggles with you, regular guy football fans, or regular female football fans. She struggles with traditional Americans who are sitting down on the first big NFL Sunday and trying to watch some football. She's not struggling with the Midtown Manhattan drink mimosas and go to brunch crowd. She's doing all right with that crowd, right? But she needs those of us who are just sitting around watching some football. So I saw more presidential ads for either political party yesterday, all coming from Harris, than I saw in 2020. I mean, I was thinking back to 40 years ago. I'm like, I don't really remember seeing a lot of Biden ads. Now, I probably did see a few, but it was telling that that was the first time I was seeing Kamala Harris ads. And it's because she knows that's who she struggles with. Males in particular, but females too. If they're sitting down on a Sunday watching the NFL, that ain't Kamala Harris's crowd right there. Okay, that's not it. And she knows that, and her party knows that. So they're going after the average NFL fan in marketing and advertising dollars, and what you saw in week 1, the first Sunday of the NFL season yesterday, which is sometimes nice when the Chiefs aren't playing, because then you just kick your feet up and you get to kind of soak in the games. You flip around, not a lot of drama. So for me, I'm watching the other things. I'm like, okay, what is actually going on outside of the games themselves? And it was Kamala ads. And it comes out at the same time that the New York Times and Siena put out a new poll, and it clearly shows Kamala Harris is running out of gas. In the new New York Times Siena national poll that was put out yesterday morning, Donald Trump now leads Kamala Harris nationally among likely voters, not registered voters, likely voters, 48 to 47. By the way, I know that every poll comes with a grain of salt. But when you have ones like the New York Times showing Donald Trump leading by a point, just to put this into perspective, 48%, if accurate, and you never know with any of these polls, would represent a higher share of the vote than Trump received at the ballot box in either 2016 or 2020. This is a terrible place for Kamala Harris's nationwide polling to be. And it's like that sugar high that she's been on for the last 6-7 weeks is starting to fizzle out. People are starting to realize, not sure there's a lot of there. In fact, I don't really know who this person is. I know they're a Democrat from San Francisco, California, which frankly, to most people is reason enough to not vote for him. But I don't really know what she stands for.
Say, but you repeat yourself, right? Democrat, San Francisco.
Exactly right. So you sit here now and you look at some of the polling, and you're seeing that in particular, she is hemorrhaging voters when it comes to males in swing states like Pennsylvania, Nevada, and North Carolina, where the gender gap is just absolutely enormous, and it's continuing to grow. And Donald Trump, according to thehill.com, is flooding some of these swing states, targeting young male voters. And as someone who, if I was in a swing state as a 36-year-old, I guess I would be getting targeted by Donald Trump with these ads. I mean, now you can really geo-target people on digital media in ways you couldn't even 8 years ago, right? If you want to reach a 25 to 30-year-old male who might vote Republican, I mean, you can really do that with Facebook, with YouTube, in ways that you never really could in marketing history.
I was going to say, I think that's going on here. Since I'm not in her target demo and I cut the cord, I didn't see as much of it on broadcast TV.
Yes.
I wasn't quite paying attention, but I know when I watch YouTube, I get the spots in. So like you say, it's very targeted.
It's super targeted. I mean, I'll get ads that John won't get if we're watching the same exact program. It's different from radio or broadcast television in that respect, where you might be getting ads that I'm not getting, and I might be getting ads that you're not getting because of how much these big tech companies know about us, whether you like it or not. That's just the way of the world right now. So with Kamala knowing that, what does that mean? Well, it means she's got one more shot. This is all going to come down to tomorrow night. Tomorrow night is Kamala Harris's chance to try to appear palatable to tens of millions of Americans. And instead of her campaign spending the last couple of weeks complaining about how, oh, the mics are muted, we don't want the mics muted, that helps Donald Trump. Instead of like doing that whole dog and pony show, they should have just come to the obvious conclusion that all we need to do is even pretend that we are middle of the road and act somewhat normal and act somewhat palatable to a large swath of American people who do not trust us, rightfully so, I will add. And the fact that that has not been their strategy, or at least that has not been a part of their strategy that has been reported publicly, suggests to me that they don't even realize what they need to do. See, they're still more concerned with having this moment in the debate against Donald Trump that will make CNN proud. They're more interested in having a moment in the debate that will make the CNN fanboys and fangirls do cartwheels. They're more interested in that, and they're more concerned about that than they are just presenting a candidate and presenting a vision that tens of millions of normal Americans will say, okay, that's not that bad. I might give it a shot. So they don't even realize what to do about the problem that they have. Their problem is men in particular. Their problem is people who are just like going about their everyday lives and don't really like the inflation, don't really care for Joe Biden, and want a reason to at least give her a chance because they may also not love Donald Trump. And based on all the reporting that's out there on Kamala Harris's campaign strategy ahead of tomorrow night, they don't even realize what they need to do to be appealing to normal people. They don't even understand it, which tells me the only way that this thing breaks for Kamala Harris tomorrow night is if Donald Trump somehow screws it up. That's the only way, because it's very evident and it's very clear that Kamala Harris's team does not know how to connect with regular people. And with that being said, if they thought this was going to help them over the weekend, oh my goodness. Did you see the big grandiose endorsement that frankly means absolutely nothing? Geez, we're struggling with guys, in particular young men, younger men. What do? We break out this endorsement. You've got to be kidding me. We'll get to it next. Pete Mundo on 95.7 FM KCMO and streaming all morning long on the KCMO Talk Radio app. Oh, what are we going to do? Oh, no. Dick Cheney and Liz Cheney are endorsing Kamala Harris. Oh, no. How are we going to make it?
Where are my pearls?
Yes. Oh, clutch them.
Those pearls.
Clutch them hard there, John. Oh, happy Monday. Thanks for being here on KCMO. Oh, boy. This is a sign of desperation is what this is. Now, I don't know about you, but I remember a time, it wasn't all that long ago. Joe Biden probably doesn't remember this. It was 16 years ago. But Joe Biden was once debating Sarah Palin in a VP debate back in 2008, and he said this.
Vice President Cheney interpretation of the vice president?
Vice President Cheney's been the most dangerous vice president we've had probably in American history.
Whoa! Here he is, Dick Cheney, coming in from the bullpen.
Well, he meant going hunting with him. That's what he meant.
So Dick Cheney and Liz Cheney come out, and of course they're all in for Kamala Harris. As if that's going to move any needle with anybody. I'm pretty confident that Dick Cheney doesn't move the needle with any Republican who was on the fence wondering, do I vote Trump? Do I vote Harris? I'm waiting on Dick Cheney. Dick, what do I do, buddy?
That's what I was thinking. It's like anybody that's uninformed enough to not have an opinion doesn't know who they are.
Yeah. Oh, and if they do, all they know about him is that, like you said, he's shooting guys on hunting trips. That's the extent of what they know. Yeah, yeah. I mean, this is as pathetic as it comes. A lot of people texted me when this came down, and they said, can you believe Dick Cheney endorsing Kamala Harris? I'm so disappointed. I'm not disappointed.
In what?
In what? Yes. What's there to be disappointed in? I haven't thought about Dick Cheney in well over a decade. I don't get moved emotionally by Dick Cheney on either side. If Dick Cheney had come out and endorsed Donald Trump, I would not be talking about Dick Cheney this morning. It would be irrelevant to me. If he's like, this country has no choice, we must go ahead with Donald Trump. No, it's Dick Cheney. He's irrelevant when it comes to American politics. I mean, he might move some money because he's got rich friends, courtesy of, his awful foreign policy decisions with George W. Bush going on 20 years ago now. But in terms of like the regular person, the regular voter, whether it's you here in Kansas or Missouri or anywhere else in the country, nobody is moved by Dick Cheney's endorsement in 2024.
They're waiting on Dan Quayle.
Though I'd rather have Dan probably than Dick, to be honest.
At this point.
So Donald Trump responded to this, by the way, in a Truth Social post after Dick Cheney announced on Friday that he was going to be endorsing Kamala Harris. He writes here, Dick Cheney's an irrelevant rhino. For those of you that don't know that acronym, that would be Republican in name only, along with his daughter, who lost by the largest margin in the history of congressional races. Of course, she lost her 2022 midterm election to a Donald Trump-backed challenger in Wyoming. And this is, one of those very interesting endorsements that doesn't make a lot of sense. Dick Cheney, when it comes to the surface, has nothing in common with Kamala Harris. Neither does Liz Cheney, theoretically. This all smells of personal beef. As Donald Trump noted, he picked a candidate who beat Liz Cheney by 39 points. Dick Cheney is upset that his daughter really doesn't have any kind of political power to speak of in Washington, D.C. And this is all personal. That's all this is. It's all personal. But it does absolutely nothing for the average voter. And everybody knows that. Now, of course, CNN is like, whoa, can you believe, oh, man, Dick Cheney's come out and made an endorsement. Oh, my goodness, it's a game changer in the 2024 election. Said nobody ever. And here's what Tom Cotton, Arkansas U.S. Senator, said when he went on CNN yesterday and was asked about this, because the media is trying to hype up this big Dick Cheney endorsement like it means anything, when, by the way, these people thought that Dick Cheney was like the devil 20 years ago.
Dick Cheney was vice president of the United States for 8 years. He was a senior member of the House. He was chief of staff to Gerald Ford. He worked tirelessly to advance Republican policies for a long time. You don't think his endorsement of a Democrat with that kind of pedigree is going to make a difference with swing voters?
I really don't. I
or
mean,
never Trump voters who weren't sure about Harris?
Well, I mean, some of this is probably that Donald Trump beat his daughter in her last election by 39 points. I think most Americans are going to look at this race and compare the records they have. Again, it's a very unusual race. When you have a president who served in office, who brought good times to America, and you have Kamala Harris, a San Francisco liberal, who has brought to America exactly what you see in San Francisco as well.
Okay. Tom Cotton putting it very well. 913-408-7957. It's not going to move the needle. Maybe Weston Gladstone is going to be moved by this. Go ahead, Wes. You're on KCMO.
Yeah, Pete. So why this makes sense is I guarantee you, and you probably agree with me, possibly, but Liz Cheney at some time thought she was going to be president. Okay, she was going to run for president one of these days. And then here came this squirrel named Donald Trump, who took the Republican Party away from the Bushes and the Cheneys. And that's all this is about. You know, Dick is up there in Wyoming cleaning the shotgun, thinking about, okay, who can I go bird hunting with next? No takers, okay? And, you know, we're going to get the Republican Party back to where it belongs, where the Bushes and the Cheneys are running shows. And it ain't happening, Dick. And you voting for Kamala Harris is not going to do anything. So it's rather pathetic.
Well,
Here's
what I would agree with you on, Wes. And what I'll add to that is, do I think that they're upset that their stranglehold is over on the Republican Party when it comes to the Cheneys at large? Yes. Do I think Liz Cheney ever wanted to be president? I don't know. Maybe. It's pretty rare that somebody comes out of the House of Representatives these days and ends up being a viable presidential candidate. Senators, yes. House members, not so much. I don't know what Liz Cheney's goals were. But either way, she had a lot of power behind the scenes, I'm sure, being a Cheney. Those days are long gone. So now she can go to her coffee shops. She can hang out with, Bill Kristol and many of that ilk, and they can shed their tears and cry all day about Donald Trump. But here's what they don't understand. This election's not about Donald Trump. They have such Trump derangement syndrome, they make it about Donald Trump. This is about one thing and one thing only. Do you want the country to continue down a super liberal path that it's been down the last 3.5 years? Do you like those results? Or do you want to vote for the other guy? I'm referring to Donald Trump as the other guy. That's what the election really is. And if you strip out your Trump derangement syndrome, those are the two options on the table for America in 2024. 913-408-7957. 650, happy Monday morning. Thanks for starting off your week here on KCMO 95.7 FM. So we got the jobs report on Friday. It came in below expectations. And unfortunately, and who knows, by the way, once they actually adjust that number, how much lower it goes. But the jobs number came out on Friday, and the expectations were for, about 165,000 jobs, and instead we got about 142,000 jobs. That came down on Friday. So when you look into the data itself, this thing to me is the thing that got most overlooked from this jobs report. And that is the number of people who are categorized as not being in the labor force. The number of people categorized as not being in the labor force is over 5 million more than pre-pandemic, and even higher above the pre-pandemic trend. So what does that mean? That means that the unemployment rate that Joe Biden has been bragging about for so long, that's sitting at about 4%, is an artificial number. Because there are millions of people who are not looking for a job, which means they don't count against the unemployment number. That's why if you're sitting there and you're like, wait, I'm confused because let's say you're a hiring manager or you own a small business. And you're like, the labor market's soft, but I'm still not getting applications. I can't find good candidates. What's going on? Well, the part of that is people have dropped out. They're not looking for a job anymore. And when they stop looking for a job after a few weeks, they don't count against the job number, the unemployment number. So it's just a math equation. If you are not looking for work after X amount of weeks, what does that mean? The unemployment rate and the way it's calculated doesn't include you. Even though you're not working and you might have been working 2 months ago, you don't count anymore because you're not looking for a job.
As you say, it's a machination of a math formula because once you get to the end of your benefits, they go, Oh, you don't count anymore.
Yeah, you're done.
They kick you off the list. It's not like something you declare.
No,
Where you go, hey, I'm looking for work or I'm not. They just kick you off the list at the end.
They don't tell the government or you don't tell the government, I am no longer searching for a job. That's not how it works. They just don't count you anymore. So when you look at this chart here that I will repost on X in a minute, we now have well over 100 million people who are not in the labor force, when prior to the pandemic, that number was sitting at about 95 million. And it sat at about 95 million for most of Donald Trump's time in office. And then it jumped when COVID hit to nearly 105 million. It dropped to about 100 million in late 2020, and it's hovered around that mark for a long time. So who are those individuals? Are there people maybe who just didn't go back to work? Yeah, possibly. But a lot of people also might have figured out a way around the system. Are those people on maybe, air quotes, benefits? I hate calling them benefits when they're people who should be working, right? If you're somebody who is capable of holding down a job and you realize you don't have to because the government's there for you with a way too big safety net, that may include some of those individuals as well. Those who are not in the labor force, that number matters. It matters not just when it comes to the job market. It also matters in our politics. If you have 5 million more people who don't have to work because they've figured out a way around the system, I'm not talking about people who just decided, you know what, I'm getting older, COVID hits, I'm going to kick my feet up, I've got my Social Security. I'm not talking about that person, right? I'm talking about, younger people who are capable of holding down jobs, who are able-bodied adults and able-bodied workers, who have decided for one reason or another that they don't need to work or they don't have to work. Whether that's because they've gotten some program they're on, whether it's because they're crashing in mom's basement as a 30-year-old man-child, whatever it might be. That's the number right there that is wildly concerning and also has political ramifications. There is one political party that would love a world where basically you need the government to survive. By the way, I'm going to do my Biden whisper here for a second. By the way, that party is not the Republican Party. It's not, man. Come on, man. It's not. Oh, jeez.
He's there.
That's what I get for doing the Biden whisper before 7 a.m. on a Monday. Shame on me. I'm going to blow my lungs out here. I don't know how that guy does it. I did a whisper for 10 seconds, and I'm coughing up a cow over here. Gosh.
And I love your ears.
I love those ears, man. Oh, gosh. But anyway.
You got the cough down, though.
I do. Jeez, I'm trying to mimic Joe on a Monday. You're right. I've got the cough down pat. But there's one party that prefers 100 million plus people not be in the labor force. And it's not the party that wants prosperity for all Americans. It's not the party that wants to see each individual reach their own success and have their own success and use their talents to the best of their ability to achieve whatever they want in this great experiment that is America for themselves and their families. There's one party that's okay with that number. And that's the number that if Donald Trump gets back in the office, he's got to focus on getting back down. And that's looking at the waste you've got in the government. That's trying to figure out a way to get out of this malaise of a growing national debt, $36 trillion, where our interest payments are larger than the Department of Defense. Those are the things that have got to be day one priorities for this guy the second he gets in there. Because we can talk about, hey, look at the unemployment rate, it's great, and look at this, it's great. And oh my goodness, people are working. Well, so many of the jobs are coming from the government, which is always a problem and a sign of a recession. And then the other thing you've got is millions of more people not even in the labor force, able-bodied Americans. And it's impacting young men in a major way. Who's bringing that sexy back tomorrow night? That's what I want to know. Debate 2024, Donald Trump, Kamala Harris on the stage. Good morning. Happy Monday. Thanks for joining us on 95.7 FM KCMO. Kamala Harris is upset over something that she has no business being upset about. According to a new report from Politico, Kamala Harris's team is still very upset that they think she is going to be handcuffed by the debate rules that were set by Joe Biden's team back in the spring. And that, of course, is the muted microphone. They are already laying the foundation for Kamala Harris having a bad debate tomorrow night against Donald Trump. And they're not going to blame Trump. They're not going to blame ABC News. They're going to blame Joe Biden. This headline does not come out to Politico, which has every in with the Democratic establishment as any media outlet does in America, without this being something that is carefully crafted and carefully planted by people who are already making excuses. And this was the headline yesterday from Kamala Harris's team, I believe, at Politico.com. Harris team worried she'll be handcuffed by debate rules set by Joe Biden. See, nothing's our fault. If I bomb out tomorrow, it's just because Joe Biden set these crappy rules and I couldn't get out of them and ABC wouldn't help me. So don't look at me. This is a campaign and a candidate that has zero confidence going on that debate stage tomorrow night. Politico reports here that Kamala Harris had planned to object, fact check, and directly question Donald Trump while he was speaking during their debate this week. But now, with the rules just finalized to mute the candidates when their opponents speak, by the way, the rules were not just finalized. The rules were agreed to months ago. They write, campaign officials said Harris advisors are scrambling to rewrite their playbook. Harris and her team holed up in Pittsburgh for a multi-day debate camp. What do you think those debate camps include? I'd love to be a part of a debate camp, by the way. What does that mean? Wanted unmuted microphones so that the vice president could lean on her prosecutorial background, confronting the former president in the same way she laced into some of Trump's Supreme Court nominees and cabinet members during Senate hearings. That, of course, would be from a few years ago before she became the VP when Donald Trump was the president. Instead, 4 Harris campaign officials tell Politico that she will be handcuffed by the rules, which were negotiated by Joe Biden's team earlier this summer. I have this crazy idea. I know this is like going to be a little wild here. But did Kamala Harris and her campaign ever think about the idea of possibly just like presenting her policy ideas to the American people? Do you think that ever occurred to them?
Talk about a bombshell.
I just like wild idea. Muted microphones, which then just gives you the floor to look into the camera and talk to the American people about what you want to do on behalf of the nation. And, maybe also explain to us why whatever ideas you have not been executed the last 4 years. That would be a great icing on the cake as well. That might be a bridge too far, but boy, that would be nice, wouldn't it? Instead, basically, they're upset that they can't get into this gotcha game and try to basically get under Donald Trump's skin by interrupting him. So you see, their plan was to actually interrupt Donald Trump in real time. And you know what the goal would have been then? To get Trump flustered and get Donald Trump to then say something or do something that makes him look like the big, mean old man hitting back on the woman. That's the play that they were going to go for. Let's be very clear. And now they can't execute that game plan. And why they ever thought that was going to work and why they ever thought that ABC would just acquiesce and say, fine, you want different rules? Okay, go ahead. Instead of putting together your first game plan based on the rules that were agreed to months ago and then having a backup game plan for if you can get the media to do your bidding for you and change the rules in the middle of this campaign, that might have made some sense. But you were banking on basically getting the rules changed, and you failed to do that. And thank goodness you failed to do that. Because Kamala Harris needs to look into the camera tomorrow night and just present some kind of vision. There is no vision right now. Outside of joy, which, by the way, is not really a vision. The American people have not experienced joy, for the most part, over the last 3.5 years during your time in office. So stop trying to sell me on joy. Stop trying to sell most of the American people on joy. They're not experiencing joy. I know you guys are, because you're spending money hand over fist and throwing money out the window, and now we're $36 trillion in debt, but most people aren't feeling that way. So the honeymoon's over. The question is, does the honeymoon officially end tomorrow? Or does it continue on for another 55 days? That's the thing that remains to be seen here in all this. And in the meantime, Kamala did come out of the bunker in Pittsburgh yesterday. And if you didn't see this clip, she went to a spice shop. That's spicy, is it not? Kamala Harris going to the spice shop out of the bunker.
Oh, yeah, it's a triggered one.
Yeah.
They were up at Overland Park at one time. I don't know if they're still there or not.
What, this company?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Penzies?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
that's the first thing I had to look. I thought, spice shop. I wonder if it was Penzies. Oh, indeed it was.
Are they not in Overland Park anymore?
I don't know where they're at. I guess they're nationwide, obviously, but they were downtown OP at one time.
How about that? Well, Kamala went hunting for some spices in Pittsburgh yesterday, and here's what that sounded like.
President, are you ready to face Donald Trump? Yes, I am. Yes.
Best part of debate prep for you? What's your favorite?
Being at the spice store, I finally got out of the debate prep to look at these spices. Best part of debate prep so far.
She's trying so hard not to cackle. You can hear it. She is trying so hard. Like, that would have been a classic Kamala cackle right there. But I will give her this much. She's learned that from her handlers. Drop the cackle. She's chuckling, but she's not cackling like an insane person who's about to kill you. So that's a step in the right direction. The question is, what can she possibly present to the American people tomorrow night that is going to be compelling, that is going to make them believe, you know what, if I'm on the fence, I can give this person the nuclear codes, I can feel good that they're going to help turn around this economy and get inflation under control. And that's why if I'm Donald Trump, you know what I do tomorrow night? I look at the camera and I say, listen, the American people on the other side of this screen know me. They may not all love me, but they know me. They don't know you. I have done however many debates he's done, fill in the blanks, 7, 8 presidential debates. This is your first. So out of respect for the American people who know where I stand on most issues, I'd like to hand my time over to you, Madam Vice President, and let you talk about these critical issues to the American people and explain your vision to the American people. That would be brilliant. Now, Trump's not going to do it, but that would be brilliant politics if he did it. Because it would throw her completely off her game. John Carl of ABC News, who I think is doing the debate, I don't know if it's him or Snuffleupagus, but it's one of them doing the debate tomorrow night. They wouldn't know what to do. They would be freaking out. They'd have their producers in their ear like, get Trump to talk, get him to talk, what are you doing? And Trump just calm, cool, collected, says, no, I want to give you my time. My time is your time. You share your vision with the American people. They know where I stand. And I think there would be massive meltdowns on the Harris campaign team and on the ABC News team as well. 913-408-7957 on a Monday morning at 7:14. Brad Lemon, Kansas City Fraternal Order of Police president at the bottom of the hour. So why is Taylor Swift's team furious at the NFL after what happened at Arrowhead Stadium last week? We'll tell you that next here on KCMO. Taylor Swift's team is not happy at all with the NFL. Why? Well, they are alleging that the NFL is the one who leaked to The Athletic late last week that Taylor Swift was going to be at Arrowhead Stadium for, of course, the season opener. Now, this report comes from Page 6 with the New York Post, and they say Swift's team was allegedly fuming that news of her whereabouts were made public after the CIA was informed of threats made against her before a concert in Austria, an incident that forced her to cancel 3 shows and become more vigilant about sharing her location. A source tells Page 6 that Taylor Swift has presidential-level security. After Austria, her security firm is not too happy that her whereabouts are out there. Now, why would the NFL do this? Why would the NFL leak Taylor Swift's location and the fact that she's going to be at Arrowhead ahead of the game on Thursday? Because they know it's good for ratings. That's why. And by the way, it worked. The Chiefs' win over the Ravens on Thursday night set a record, 28.9 million viewers, the most of any NFL kickoff game since it became a tradition back in 2002, and a 5% increase over last year's game between the Chiefs and the Lions.
The security detail, is that kind of like at the car wash where you have levels? So she has presidential level, but what maybe they called and said, what do you got that's better than what Trump got? Well, we have presidential level.
Can we not get Trump level security where he's getting blasted in the head by a quarter of an inch and losing his life,
for
please?
a couple bucks more, you get the undercoating and all that.
It seems like everybody knew before the NFL announced it that she was going to be there Thursday, right?
Well, I would have been surprised if she wasn't there.
Yeah.
I mean, at that point. Now, I will say, they say she has presidential level security. Let me tell you what I saw on Thursday night. Since I had that photo or the video that Kate and I took, we were invited to a suite, 2 suites down from Taylor. We were sitting with the folks, but then we got invited, and I said, you know what? I've never sat over there before. Let's stop by. And it was 2 suites over from her, and we had that video up on my Instagram, at Pete Mundo. And actually, it was on Kate's Instagram, and I just reshared it. She was the paparazzi for the night. So you can access these suites on the 100 level at Arrowhead Stadium. But where Taylor's suite was blocked off by, those guardrails. But I'm not going to lie, it wasn't exactly an intimidating presence on the other side of those guardrails. At one point, it was like a 70-year-old lady in one of those yellow Arrowhead jackets with, a 4-foot rail, 3.5-foot rail in front of her.
All right.
If that's presidential level security, I don't know. I'm not impressed. I'm just saying that. If that's presidential level security and then Trump's got presidential level security, you know what? I'm okay walking up and down the streets by myself. I'll take my chances.
I would have assumed her level of security would have been at the level of the president anyway, right?
I would have thought so, too.
But maybe she just has a bodyguard.
I've got to imagine there were probably multiple undercover bodyguards in that suite and around the stadium. Mm-hmm. Obviously, they're not going to, have big patches that say, I'm an undercover bodyguard for Taylor Swift, but I'm sure there was plenty of that out there. I'm just saying, the old lady with the little 3-foot fence in front of her around the suite was not intimidating me. I'll just leave it at that.
And getting into the stadium is probably more security. Once she's in there, people have to go through the metal detectors and everything, so it's probably a little more safe once she's in the stadium.
That's very true as well. And obviously, she's kind of used to living with that level of security, I got to imagine. So the NFL leaked this to The Athletic. Most of us assumed she was going to be here, but her team was not happy about that. So I don't know if that means she'll be showing up to less games. I doubt it. I'm sure she'll be here for the Bengals game this weekend. I bet she'll be here for the Bengals game. They were hanging out, if you didn't see it, at the U.S. Open over the weekend, the tennis U.S. Open in New York. And Patrick and Brittany Mahomes flew in as well. I saw they were at the current game on Friday or Saturday, and then they flew into New York, I guess, to watch the U.S. Open with Taylor and Travis on Sunday. And there was a moment, and this photo's gone viral, where Taylor and Brittany are hugging. Mm-hmm. And the Swifties have lost their minds. They have lost their minds. Here's one thing. I just shared this on X, at Pete Mundo. This post got 9 million views from some Swiftie. And it's them resharing Taylor and Brittany hugging. And it says, the fact that she, meaning Taylor, has made a whole thing about being so anti-Trump in 2020. Released a whole documentary highlighting her political stance and how she wants to be on the right side of history. And yet, ... crying emoji. This with the picture of Taylor hugging Brittany. That got 9 million impressions on X over the last couple of days. And I shared it just now, and I wrote, Swifties melting down over their perceived, quote, Lord and Savior, end quote, hugging someone who disagrees with her politically while also insisting they're the party of tolerance is peak hypocrisy. But it also perfectly summarizes the modern day left in a nutshell, where they get to sit on their high horse and talk about how they're the tolerant ones. And if you don't agree with them, oh, you're living in the past. You're not tolerant. You want to take us back, to an era where people couldn't be who they wanted to be and love who they wanted to love and all this other nonsense they make up, while also melting down over Taylor Swift hugging a friend who might vote differently from her. Summarizes these people perfectly. That is the modern day left in a nutshell. And by the way, I am glad, and I like Taylor Swift more based on the fact that she's hugging Brittany Mahomes in public for the entire world to see. Because it sends a very clear message that we need to be bigger than our politics and better than our politics. And she knew that this picture was going to get out there. She doesn't do anything by accident. She knew this was going to be out there. And to me, that's a step in the right direction, and maybe her own fans can learn something from that. But I'm not going to hold my breath. It was quite a first Sunday of the NFL season yesterday. Did you see that our old pal Tyreek Hill got arrested before the game?
I was a little nervous. He's on a couple of my fantasy teams.
Of course he is.
I was checking.
Mark was worried about fantasy. He had 7 parlays going. Yeah. We forgot to get a buy, sell, hold Friday on a good parlay.
We'll get one for next week for the Chiefs.
All right. We'll get one for the Bengals game coming up this weekend. So Tyreek Hill, the guy ends up getting arrested yesterday on the way to the game. Now, he was let off, and, it's being investigated. The officer's conduct, I guess, is being investigated as well. The Miami-Dade police officer was placed on administrative duty after Tyreek Hill was detained before the game, before his season opener. And this was for a short time due to a traffic incident, the team said on social media, a moving violation, not clear why the situation ended up escalating, but that police officer once again placed on administrative leave. So here is Tyreek Hill after the game commenting on this and jumping right to the victim card, which is completely ridiculous.
Right now, so I've been trying to figure that out too. Man. Right now, I'm still trying to put it all together. So I'm not going to give you a version that I still don't know what happened. You know what I'm saying? But I do want to be able to use this platform to say, like, what if I wasn't Tyreek Hill, bro? Like, worst case scenario, because it's crazy. Like, I want to be a cop one day. I got a state trooper, had all that, so I got a lot of respect for cops, man. But obviously, everybody has bad apples in every situation, so I want to be able to, use this platform, to figure out a way to, like, flip this and, make it a positive on both ends, on my end and then also Miami-Dade, so that way we can team together and, do something positive for the community, because that's what it's all about, bro. Like, you guys are here to, like, protect us as individuals, and I have a platform, and I want to be able to team up with you guys. So that's all I got to say.
Well, I'm glad Tyreek Hill has respect for cops, because he has rarely had respect for the women or children in his own life. Tyreek Hill, don't forget, plummeted in the NFL draft after he was arrested in Stillwater, Oklahoma, when he was at Oklahoma State on complaints of assaulting his 20-year-old pregnant girlfriend. And I'll get to more of the legal issues for Tyreek Hill here in a second, but the answer to Tyreek Hill's question of what if I wasn't Tyreek Hill, implying, of course, he would have been a black man who would have been mistreated by a cop. That's what he was going for there, right? Well, if it wasn't Tyreek Hill, he might very well be in prison for the way he's treated the women and children in his own life. That's what would happen if he wasn't Tyreek Hill. So I'm going to answer that question for Tyreek with that very obvious answer. So He was dismissed from the Oklahoma State football team, as many of you know by now, back in 2014, eventually pleaded guilty to domestic assault and battery by strangulation, and sentenced to 3 years of probation, anger management, year-long batterers program, and required to undergo a domestic abuse evaluation. In March of 19, investigated for alleged battery after an incident in which his 3-year-old son sustained a broken arm. In June of 23, Miami-Dade Police Department announced they were investigating Hill for allegedly assaulting a male employee at a Marine Center after a verbal disagreement. December of 23 announced the 2 separate paternity lawsuits for child support were filed against Tyreek Hill. In 2024, a civil lawsuit filed against Tyreek Hill, a woman alleging that he had broken her leg during a football lesson at his house the previous June when he was invited to run offensive drills against him. Now, some of these lawsuits, listen, are people looking for money. I get it. We all understand the way of the world. But that incident from 2014 at Oklahoma State, if he's not Tyreek Hill, that likely ends up much differently. So the whole thing of like, I'm the victim, woe is me, what if I wasn't Tyreek Hill? I'm not sure that's a game that Tyreek Hill really wants to play. At least if you're being honest about Tyreek Hill's past. If there was somebody else involved who had a clean record, you might be able to go down that road. But I don't like how he dabbled in that game anyway, which is why I'm bringing this up. Instead of just saying, hey, misunderstanding, moving violation, we've all made them, I screwed up, no ill will against the cops, it happens, I'm glad I got to the game, I played great, blah, blah, blah. He had to drop that little nugget in there of, what if I wasn't Tyreek Hill? And while I know this is not going to be talked about on other sports radio because they're afraid to say it, and of course First Take, ESPN would never dare say something like this, we're happy to do it. If you weren't Tyreek Hill, you probably would have been in prison and would have not made it to the NFL. But it is good to be a world-class athlete. Athletic privilege is a real thing. And that's not changing anytime soon for better or for worse.